All right, guys, we're back here on Southeastern 16. Max Barr joins me, and what an occasion. Because the SEC basketball schedule has been released literally seconds ago. Good timing on our part, Max Barr, for us to go live right when it was released, huh? The SEC men's basketball schedule has been announced. 144 games will be played this season, as you guys know. And we've got all the details for you as we have a special interview that we recorded with SEC Associate Commissioner Garth Glissman. We will play that here in just a bit, and you'll get Garth's thoughts on the making of the entire schedule. He'll tell you everything that they did to maybe try to improve on some things from last season, what they're trying to do moving forward in terms of looking at, just the way they want the schedule to work. The new additions to the schedule, Rivalry Saturday, Max Barr. Ooh. What an unbelievable addition, I think, to the schedule. March the 7th, Rivalry Saturday. Lots of traditional rivalries going to take place on that day. It's going to be awesome. And so we got all the details for you on the SEC schedule. Max, your initial thoughts on Rivalry Saturday, the opening day slate, which we can probably pull up. We do pull that up in the conversation with Garth. An incredible schedule this season.
Blake, my hands are sweaty. My knees are weak. My arms are heavy. Mom spaghetti. Let's go, guys. Come on. My. Christmas morning here. We've got an SEC schedule, the best league in America, the defending national champs, and this is what we kick you off with. This is what we start with Saturday, January 3rd. Look at some of these matchups, folks. Tennessee at Arkansas, Florida at Missouri, Kentucky at Alabama, the three headliners, but it doesn't even stop there. Look at this. We both like Ole Miss and Oklahoma. What a game there. You've got LSU being tested at new look Texas A&M. All these... I'm sorry. I got to calm down. We got a long show. Bring it down. I'm excited.
Let's level out a little bit because before we jump into anything else, let's, of course, quickly tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, where you'll be able to bet on all these games that'll be coming up down the pike here. Check them out. FanDuel, remember, the same game parlays. They've got the player props, team props. You want to bet on a national champion right now? You can do that over at FanDuel. All kinds of stuff. Our new title sponsor here at Southeastern 16, part of our hard work of our friends over at Believe. And so we appreciate them. But yes, check out our friends over at FanDuel. And if you're just joining in, remember, we have an exclusive interview coming with SEC Associate Commissioner Garth Glissman. We have recorded that interview, so we will be playing that here on this live show. And you'll get all the details you need on everything regarding the making of this year's schedule. But let's get back into looking at this. If you were curious about the opening day slate, you're listening on audio. You're not seeing this visually. Tennessee at Arkansas. Auburn at Georgia, which it seems like I know Auburn fans always talk about. That trip to Athens, always a little sneaky. How about Florida at Missouri? Oh, my. Vanderbilt at South Carolina, LSU at A&M, Mississippi State at Texas, Ole Miss at Oklahoma, Kentucky at Alabama. That will start off the opening slate. Garth gets into some thoughts on that too, by the way, as to why they scheduled this way with some of these matchups on opening day. Max, we mentioned the Rivalry Saturday is also a big new addition to the SEC schedule. I'm going to give you that here shortly as I pull it up here, and we'll show you the way the season starts and the way the season is going to end, because this Rivalry Saturday, I'm all in on this. Remember, football, you do this in SEC football where you've got the big rivalry games at the end and all that. Here are your Rivalry Saturday games. March the 7th. Remember, this is right before the SEC tournament. Florida at Kentucky. Oh, my.
Holy smokes.
Texas A&M at LSU. South Carolina at Ole Miss. Georgia at Mississippi State. Arkansas at Missouri. Vanderbilt at Tennessee. Oklahoma at Texas. Auburn at Alabama. So, whoa, my.
And now the league may be on the line with these games. The league title.
Could be.
The regular season title might be on the line with these games right here.
Yeah, you could have several games here that factor into the SEC regular season championship, perhaps. You will undoubtedly have several games that factor into potentially NCAA tournament seeding, how many teams get in, all that kind of stuff. So incredible, I think, when you look at it from that standpoint. So that is the start. That is the finish of the SEC schedule. Other things that stand out to us as we look at it. January the 24th, Max. Mark it down. As Garth mentioned in the interview we're going to play for you shortly. The rematch, Final Four, Auburn at Florida on January the 24th. That is a Saturday. Big game there, as we know, the Final Four rematch. January 31st, I think, is a pretty loaded slate. Yeah. You get Kentucky at Arkansas on January 31st. Remember, this is the week where the NFL has the off week between the championship games and the Super Bowl. Kentucky at Arkansas. Alabama at Florida. You've got Auburn at Tennessee. Texas at Oklahoma. Mississippi State at Missouri. Vanderbilt at Ole Miss. Texas A&M at Georgia. January 31st. Mark that one down, too. That's a big, big day.
You know, okay, guys, this is as you start to look at the schedule, what's going to stand out to you is every Saturday there is appointment television, like a game you're looking forward to for a full week. You're looking past a Tuesday and Wednesday game for these big Saturday games, and that's not to say anything about the midweek, but the Saturday, it's going to be a full. You're going to get your Aldi pizza in the morning, get your frozen pizzas, okay, get your diet summits, get your whole Saturday, everything you would do for your football Saturday. It's gonna get carried right over to basketball. This is just January, Blake. This is just January. I'm just gonna go Saturday. There's 5 Saturdays, okay, and I'll just give you one game from each. Kentucky at Alabama, the first weekend. There's a game. The next weekend, Tennessee at Florida. I will be looking forward to that for days. Kentucky and Tennessee. Auburn, Florida. Kentucky, Arkansas. Every Saturday, there is going to be a massive, massive game. We'll probably be doing a watch-along for that you'll be watching with us. So just get ready. Saturdays, it's not going to end with football. It's going to go all the way till March.
Yeah. By the way, I know you guys are like, wait a minute. You guys are going 2 days in a row here. It was warranted. We teased this yesterday. We had an idea that this would be about the time that I think we were going to kind of have the schedule potentially come out. And so, yes, we decided we wanted to do this. And again, you are going to get the special interview with Garth coming up here shortly. We go about a half hour with Garth, and you get all the insight on how this schedule was made and all the big things that went into it. So keep that in mind. Yes, just a fascinating interview on how the SEC goes about the scheduling and also some of the things that they took, perhaps your own feedback that you had from last season. They took that into account when making this particular schedule. So you guys are hopping in the chat. A lot of you are here. Let us know your thoughts. What do you see that stands out with the schedule? Again, we can't actually put the entire schedule up because there's just not enough room to do that. But we can kind of give you, I'm sure your teams are probably releasing it on Twitter right now or wherever else. I'm sure you can find it there. I'm sure there's kind of a coordinated release is my guess. So,
and Elijah with the perfect comment here. I'm going to pull this up. So close to the best time of the year. College football into basketball with NFL on the side. And folks, Garth is going to let you know exactly how they work around the NFL schedule. There's a pocket right between the playoffs, the conference championships, and the Super Bowl that might have me more excited for that little pocket of SEC games than the actual NFL Super Bowl itself. Really, I'm talking they took into consideration every factor they could when making the schedule, and I think it's really going to give a great experience for SEC fans.
Yep, I think so too. And, you know, one of the things we do talk about in the interview as well is kind of just what this schedule does and maybe kind of some of the feedback even from coaches about how the schedule design helped the SEC last year in terms of being able to, obviously, again, get 14 teams in the tournament. We said a lot of that work was done in the non-conference just because so many SEC teams had success there, but maybe. And I thought Max, in terms of the interview, and we're not going to, give everything away here, but we are kind of, hinting at some things. The point that he makes about how the standings last year really kind of told the story with the importance of how it kind of coincides with the schedule and the teams that come out on top with this kind of schedule. What happened last year? Those were the same teams that made it the furthest in the NCAA tournament, and so it is kind of such a fascinating dynamic when you tie all that into play here. But what else stands out for you, again, as we look at some of these games? Like I said, guys, I mean, how do we pick and choose here when it comes to just, there are multiple games on each day, each game slate that I think you can look at and be like, that's a top game nationally without question. And we said kind of that opening day slate where you've got the combination of Tennessee at Arkansas, Kentucky at Alabama. I mean, those are huge, high-profile games. Florida at Missouri, a huge game. And I feel like every single slate here, Max, when you go down the schedule, you're looking at and saying, all right, even if you go beyond the first day on Saturday, January 6th, 7th, hey, you've got games that could also just be considered like national top-tier games, Texas at Tennessee, Missouri at Kentucky. I mean, there's so many interesting dynamics with all this, and my goodness, what a slate. And the importance of Saturdays, don't forget, he does bring that up too. Like, they really dove into the Saturday schedule this year to make sure that based on the data we have now, which is, of course, the most important part of this, we can't project what every team's going to finish, but the data we have now giving us games on Saturdays that are just, as you said, I mean, all of these Saturdays are just completely loaded with big games.
Yeah, and one thing that was when they initially announced like the team home and aways, a major reaction was, no, we don't get 2 Kentucky versus Arkansas. But what we do get that we didn't get last year, as Brian brings up here, is Cats Gators, which if you're talking entertainment value, you're talking must-watch television. Kentucky basketball against Florida basketball the past few times they have played have been games that you could rewatch 10 times and not get tired of them. How entertaining they are, how back and forth they are. Didn't get that last year. The expansion, there's a lot of problems that get created for the schedule when you add teams to a conference. Well, we're back. Get 2 games at Kentucky, Florida. And so I know that some Cats fans were like, come on, we want 2 games against Arkansas. Yet the next best thing, right? 2 games against the Gators, going to be super high totals, super entertaining. They did, the office did listen to the fans quite directly, right from Twitter.
Some comments here. Elijah brings up, if you look at Tennessee's schedule now, their January schedule. So I'm going to run through Tennessee's games in January. Looking at this. So they are, again, as we said, January 3rd at Arkansas. They host Texas on the next game. January 10th, they're at Florida. Then they're hosting A&M, who, again, could be a sneaky good team. They host Kentucky the following Saturday. I mean, and then I think they get the week off. They get the break for that next one, so that's where their break comes in. They're at Alabama the following Saturday. And then they're at Georgia to finish out. Well, no, they still got the other one where they host Auburn at the end of January. My goodness, Tennessee, yeah. Laval's got a tough one out of the break, no question. By the way, too, Blue says, Kentucky's road schedule brutal. We don't duck the smoke. Give it to us. The Cats fans.
Hey, if the Cats fans, if you guys are going to take anything from 1 year of Mark Pope, it's you guys are in a pretty good spot when you're doubted. We learned our lesson last year plenty of times. But yeah, I mean, hey, we talked about that when they initially got released. No question about it. Out of all the schedules, I think it was Texas that we were really blown away with, kind of, and like, wow, that is a tough schedule. But I don't think anyone maybe had a tougher road schedule than Kentucky. But hey, you could look at the glass half full. Maybe that means you go absolutely perfect at home. You can steal a few on the road. Analytics like the road wins a little bit more. You can look, whatever your perspective is on it is going to shape your opinion of the schedule.
Yeah, I think the Tennessee point's a good one, though, because that's a team, as we said, that have some new pieces, and starting a schedule like that in SEC play coming off of what they're going to have several tough non-conference schedule games too. And so, yeah, I think that's the kind of thing you look at, especially with this schedule. I think you want to see where you're at early and see some of those kind of defining type games early on, but also as you're getting closer to tournament play and the grind of the SEC is wearing on you, do you have some of those places where, at least right now, based on projections, do you have some of those places where it's going to ease up a bit, right? Even if ease is not really a word you're going to apply to the current state of SEC basketball, probably. But yeah, so I think that's, those are good points there.
It's also, and we were talking to Garth a little bit, it's also like tough to project who has the toughest or not toughest, because we were just talking yesterday in our stream. Well, okay, what if LSU's pieces all fit together, and then instead of their preseason analytics where they're high 60s, 70s, what if that's really 40s? Then what happens to the teams that have a home and away with, or a home and home with LSU and play them twice? Now their schedule looks a lot tougher because that was baked in, a bottom 2 or 3 team when we're looking at it with the predictive analytics. Not the case once you get to January. So.
Not the case. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to quickly tell you about our friends over at ROKFORM and GameTime. Let's start with GameTime Sidekicks. Officially licensed stainless steel drinkware. All the SEC schools represented, just like on the SEC basketball schedule. Plus over 350 more universities, top of the market quality. The ice retention really gets you going like the SEC schedule does. Tons of designs and logos for each school. Have the college vault line. Don't forget about that. Everything from stainless steel sippy cup tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, shaker cups. It's all there. Remember, use that promo code SE16, SE16 over at GameTimeSidekicks.com. I'll drop the link in here as well. By the way, I did drop the link to the SEC schedule a minute ago. You can find that. And let's also tell you about our friends at ROKFORM, the world's strongest magnetic phone case. I keep telling you, I got my phone right here, propped in this little ROKFORM case. I could hit this thing right now with a hammer if I wanted. It's not going anywhere. It's as strong as the SEC schedule is in 25-26. Extreme protection, super strong magnets, Rock Lock. Go ahead and give us your Rock Lock games of the year on the SEC schedule if you want to. You can do that. So, lots of great stuff. As we said, they got a lot of cool stuff coming for the iPhone 16 and all this other stuff. So go to their website. I'm going to put this in here. Sign up for those interest lists. You can get on the list there for looking at some of the new products, limited time products they're going to be launching to coincide with the new iPhone drop. So, and remember, if you want to buy stuff over at ROKFORM, use our code SEC25, SEC25 for 25% off over there, SEC25 over at ROKFORM. So we appreciate them supporting the show. What you got, Max?
While you were doing that, I'm just looking over that March 7th rivalry Saturday. That might be the best slate of SEC basketball I could imagine. When you normally look back at the last regular season game and we do the predictions for it and it's a little funky. You're like, I don't know exactly what to expect. Sometimes the title is already decided. Some teams are playing for seeding in the SEC tournament. Some teams aren't. When you have Florida, Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, all these games are going to be played to the death. These teams hate each other. And so it takes a weekend that was kind of just like, we don't really know what to do with these games. It's the last game of the regular season, a little bit weird. Now, it just went from that to, I got to start getting the DVR out and record all these games. I'm not going to have enough eyeballs.
Well, if you need eyeballs, I would have a sponsor for eyeballs here, but we could one day. I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you who's got the best eyeballs in the business, Max Barr. That is Garth Glissman, who made this schedule along with others. The SEC Associate Commissioner joined us for a conversation, again, a pretty in-depth conversation about the making of this schedule. We're going to play that interview now here on the stream. We'll be back afterwards to get your additional comments and thoughts and everything. So this is, again, about a 25 to 30-minute interview with Garth. You're going to want to stick around for the entire thing because I'm telling you, he answers a lot of your questions and does go into, again, some of the stuff that they got pushback on last year with the schedule. So you can see some of the changes they've made and all that. We'll be back on after the interview finishes to get your additional thoughts on everything with this schedule. And so hang around, watch the interview with Garth, leave your comments. We'll address them. Also leave your super chats, anything as you're going through listening to the interview. Super chat us. That way we don't miss the comments when we get back into it and get more thoughts from you on our schedule. So let's jump into it, our interview with SEC Associate Commissioner Garth Glissman.
I want to, tap into all of the.
All right, guys, as promised, we're here with SEC Associate Commissioner Garth Glissman, our guy, back for Christmas Day here. One of many, I feel like, here for us SEC basketball aficionados. The schedule has been released, and Garth, we wanted to get you on to talk all about it. How exciting is it for you to finally, well, I guess in two ways. You finally get to see the schedule released. Everybody's excited about it, but you also are like, whew, at least we got that done, right? So...
Well, thank you for having me on, Blake, Max. It's a big day for my family for two reasons. One, schedule release, and two, first day of school here in Birmingham. Can't believe we start on August 6th. Seems like it gets earlier and earlier every year, but exciting day. Thankful that you guys had me on. Thankful for all you do to generate interest in SEC men's basketball, and I think we're making some progress. My goal is I want to, tap into all of the pageantry and passion and fandom that is SEC football and convince fans that SEC fandom doesn't have to end when football season is over. They can just carry that right over into SEC men's basketball in January, February, and March. To make that happen, we put a lot of time and thought into our schedule. And when developing the schedule, I try to put, more than anything else, I try to put myself in the mindset of a fan. And I think fans are going to love this season's schedule.
Well, one of the things, and it's probably a two-part question, but obviously the historic success the SEC had last year. And if you combine that together with maybe what you learned from last year's schedule, how did that change the process at all? What were some of maybe the biggest things you feel like you learned from maybe last year? Again, not just in the schedule-making process, but just from the historic type of success that we saw the SEC have, and maybe how that now helps benefit the league even more with this schedule that we have this season.
Well, I'm constantly trying to learn, improve, innovate. My first year on the job, I traveled around to all 16 SEC institutions, and one of the first big insights that I had during my initial travels around the league is I thought we could do more to really blow out Saturday games. And when you think about the SEC and college football Saturdays in the South, it's bigger than just a game. It's an event. It's an all-day event. It's an event that folks in the SEC plan their weeks around. And my first year in the league, it just became clear to me, and I'm not talking about just sitting in basketball arenas. I'm talking about you go to the local diner and talk to people before the game, after the game. And it was clear to me in talking to fans that we could do more to blow out Saturdays, to create more of an event feel for SEC fans that doesn't fully replicate an SEC football Saturday, but it starts to, tap into some of the same pageantry. And so last year you saw a lot of intentionality around Saturday games. You're going to see more of that again this year. Last year, for example, both Alabama and Auburn games were on a Saturday. That may sound common sense, but if you look at the data, it actually hadn't happened as often as you probably would think. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, both games on a Saturday last year. We're continuing those trends again this year. In fact, we've been able to deliver more Saturday matchups for traditional rivalries for this coming season from a data standpoint than we were last season. So we're continuing to lean in there. And then every day, every year, you try to listen and learn. Sometimes it's not that the criticism or feedback from fans takes you completely by surprise, because it's, I could point to different parts of the schedule and identify imperfections quickly, but that's the nature of scheduling. It is by definition, it's an imperfect process, and there's a series of trade-offs. So if I were to point to a certain aspect in the schedule that I don't love, I could also tell you why it's in there because of what we got in exchange for that imperfection. So last year, for example, one of the and I'm happy to own this, one of the fan bases that wasn't real happy with the SEC men's basketball schedule last year was Florida. And a lot of that had to do with the structural changes resulting from the conference's expansion from 14 to 16 teams. And so last year is the first year that structural change took effect. And it was a shock to the system for Florida fans who had grown accustomed to playing Kentucky twice every year. Of course, that's a compliment to Kentucky and its tradition and what that rivalry means to the Florida fans. And so as a structural matter, Florida and Kentucky only played once last season. And Florida fans were not happy. Well, I can promise Gator fans that you're going to love your schedule this year. Not only do we change the number of times that you're playing Kentucky as a Florida fan, so Florida Kentucky will play twice this year. Now, full transparency, that's not something that I can promise is going to happen every year, but we made it happen this year. So Florida and Kentucky will play twice this year, home and away. And the schedule lays out such that both of those games are really tentpole games, centerpieces of our schedule. So Florida will host Kentucky on Saturday, February 14th. That's a significant date. It's the first Saturday after the Super Bowl. So it's a time when casual sports fans begin to shift their attention from the NFL to basketball, college basketball in particular. That's the time of year where folks are really starting to pay attention in the run up to March Madness. So there's a lot of intentionality to that date, Florida hosting Kentucky on Saturday, February 14th. And then last day of the regular season, a day that we're nicknaming Rivalry Saturday, we're going to have several traditional rivalry matchups that last day of the regular season. And that will include Florida at Kentucky on Saturday, March 7th. So that's an example, Blake, of my journey trying to listen, learn. And I genuinely try to take feedback from people from all walks of life. I grew up a fan. My family, we lived on a small farm outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. Obviously, the University of Nebraska was our hometown team. We had the money to go to about one football game and one basketball game a year. And I consumed sports, as a fan that recognized the pageantry of our team, recognized the pageantry of what an event it was to go to a game. And so that has never left me. The passion that college sports fans have for their team, for their school. And so when I put together a schedule in partnership with our outside technology partner and other SEC colleagues, of course, we want to deliver fairness to our coaches, and there's a lot of different things we do to ensure fairness. We're very transparent with our coaches. But fundamentally, I build the schedule from the perspective of a fan, and we want to work really hard for our fans and deliver for our fans.
Max, before you jump in, just quickly, again, you guys are watching this now. We did record this interview. You have the schedule, and that rivalry Saturday, Florida at Kentucky, Auburn and Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee, and more. So, yeah, I think that's been one of the more exciting additions here, just to kind of have that big feel heading into tournament play. Max.
Yeah, well, before I get into a question, I just got to say, SEC basketball fans, we are blessed to have Garth Glissman on our team. Are you kidding me? Who else is out there on Twitter, on X, listening to the fans, communicating with the fans, offering explanations, going on all these shows, promoting SEC basketball? It just means more in the SEC. So first off, thank you, Garth, for everything that you do, because I've seen some of the feedback, the fan feedback on X, on Twitter and stuff. SEC basketball fans, I think the best way to describe them is passionate. And it's not always easy to deal on the monster that is Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But Garth, what I wanted to ask you was kind of talking about opening day, that Saturday, January 3rd. Did you guys treat opening day like a big opening day event, a big hurrah, or did it just so happen that these huge matchups, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, Missouri, just unbelievable matchups opening day, did it just kind of shake out this way, or was this really presented as hey, we're coming off of a national championship as a conference and we're coming in opening day with a boom?
we were intentional about wanting to start the season off with a bang on opening day. When I look at how the schedule unfolds this year, I think it's fair to say that we start strong and finish even stronger. And opening day, you see the matchups here on your screen, is definitely our effort to reintroduce ourselves to the college basketball world.
Yep.
And there's a lot of different considerations to balance. One of the unique features of college basketball is this unwritten rule and this tradition that you don't want to play big games too early in the season for a couple of reasons. The traditional rationale was you don't want to play big games too early because students aren't back on campus yet. Mm-hmm. And then in more recent years, although this wasn't a phenomenon historically, in more recent years, you have to be careful about playing big games in windows that conflict with either college football bowl games and playoffs, or increasingly the NFL, which is expanding its footprint. So you have to be careful about the placement of games, and you don't want to overdo it early, because especially in this part of the country and frankly nationally, there still is a lot of focus on football, both college and pro, into we'll call it the third week of January. The line of demarcation in our schedule this year, in terms of when we really kind of break free of any type of football related competition, is Saturday, January 24th. That is the day before the NFC and AFC championships. And it's also after the conclusion of the college football playoffs. So, of course, in the SEC, we expect to be competing for national championship in football. But by January 24th, we're clear of all of that. So you have to be mindful that you don't burn through a lot of valuable inventory before that line of demarcation. But at the same time, you can't just turn your back on valuable pieces of real estate. And certainly when you look across pro leagues, college football, opening day is a very valuable piece of real estate. And so we wanted to be really thoughtful about how we reintroduced SEC basketball to the college basketball community. And not only do you want to be thoughtful in terms of producing matchups that are of interest within the SEC footprint, but we're a national conference, not only in terms of how we expect to compete, but also with our platform. And so every week we want to have games, multiple games, frankly, that depending on how the season unfolds, will be the best game on that particular weekend in college basketball. So all of those factors accounted for, we landed with a really strong opening day. The three games that are getting most of the headlines, Alabama hosting Kentucky, Arkansas hosting Tennessee. You have two legendary coaches, Alabama, Kentucky. That matchup speaks for itself. Two teams that made the Sweet 16 last year. In Kentucky's case, Alabama advanced to the Elite Eight. Alabama only 2 years removed from a Final Four. You look at preseason projections, Kentucky's got a chance to be one of the best teams in the country. So Alabama, Kentucky, we think that game, at least on paper, has a chance to be the best game in the country that day. I think maybe the only other game in the country that's going to rival it would be the other SEC matchups that day. Arkansas hosting Tennessee, and then Florida at Missouri is a matchup that we're really excited about. Florida, the defending national champion, there's always intrigue as to how the defending champion starts off the season. And we think that Missouri is a team that has a chance to be really good next year. We expect all 6 of those teams that I mentioned in those matchups on opening day to be in the top 25 when those games tip off, perhaps even higher. Missouri is a team we think has a chance to take a real step forward this year. You look at who they return. Mark Mitchell, I think, is a player who's likely to be in contention for first team All SEC, maybe even SEC Player of the Year. So there's a lot to like about Missouri, and we think featuring Missouri as a team that potentially is an up and coming team with Florida, the defending national champion. There's a lot of excitement there. So those 3 games on opening day are absolutely there by design, Max. And we want to reintroduce ourselves with a bang, but also be mindful of the broader sports calendar and making sure that we're holding back some valuable inventory. So if you're an Alabama fan and you say, wow, you're giving us Kentucky on January 3rd. We're still focused on football at that time. My response to those here, what I would call business concerns from coaches. I think we're all aligned there. We do hear from coaches from time to time on what I would call a competitive concern in terms of the way certain aspects of the schedule unfold. And so what we do to try to get in front of that is you can't overcorrect based on one coach's or one school's concern. Right. So we try to be very transparent. Earlier this week, I sent a memo to all 16 SEC athletic directors and men's basketball head coaches that laid out, it was a 10-page memo, and it laid out in detail the methods and principles underlying our schedule. And so part of the methodology is how we distribute games throughout the season to ensure competitive fairness. You don't want a team to play its 9 toughest games of the year in the first 9 games of the year. You, both for competitive and business reasons, you want some smoothing and some balancing to the way that those games are distributed. So we're transparent with our coaches about the metrics. These are internal. These are metrics we've developed over time inside our office, and we're going to keep them inside our office because we think they provide us with a competitive advantage. But we share them with our coaches, and ultimately what we think that does is deliver a schedule that allows the best teams to rise to the top. And last year, from a league office standpoint, our job is to really be stewards of the game, to create a level playing field so the best teams, players, and coaches can rise to the top. And when you see how SEC teams perform during the regular season into the SEC tournament and then ultimately in the NCAA tournament, you saw tremendous consistency last year. There weren't any outliers. So the SEC regular season champion, Auburn, they go on, they get a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, they make the Final Four. Florida finishes tied for second. They win the SEC tournament, get a 1 seed, and then win the national championship. You look at the other teams that advanced: Alabama, Elite 8 team; Tennessee, an Elite 8 team; Kentucky advanced to the Sweet 16, and so on. And last season, the advancement both within the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament ultimately tracked the SEC standings. And so from a conference office standpoint, that's reassuring because it shows there's consistency And it shows that we created a competitive framework last year where ultimately the conference standings reflected who our best teams were, as proven out by how they performed in the postseason. And so that's ultimately the goal every season, is to lay a foundation so that the best teams, players, and coaches can rise to the top. And that's what drives me. There's a real fairness streak within me. And so if we hear a criticism from fans or a coach, trust me when I say that we look into it. Now, sometimes a criticism is not supported by the data. And if there's not legitimacy to it, then you look into it and you have to move on. But sometimes there is legitimacy to a criticism, and we take that seriously, and we try to get better from one year to the next.
Garth, you don't have to go too into detail with this if you don't want to, but I thought it was really interesting how much, not how much, but just even if you guys do use or reference analytics when making the schedule. Our listeners know we usually like to reference analytics like KenPom, Evan Mia, some of these really top quality college basketball predictive analytics. And we incorporate them into talking about the teams we love to watch. And I think it was I find it very interesting if maybe you guys at the office also use predictive analytics when making a schedule.
It's a great question, Max. This week is actually my 2-year anniversary at the SEC. And before I came to the SEC, I spent 7.5 years at the NBA League office. And my time at the NBA League office taught me to lean into and embrace technology, data, and innovation in any form that can provide a competitive advantage. And so we use artificial intelligence, best-in-class technology, and advanced data analytics, as well as predictive analytics, in virtually every aspect of our schedule creation, Max. And to start, we utilize a company called Fast Break AI to actually provide us with the technology platform to develop our schedule. I mentioned Fast Break AI because that's the same company that serves as the scheduling partner for every major pro sports league in the U.S. And I was familiar with Fast Break AI because the same company and the same consultant who helps build the NBA schedule helps build the SEC schedule. So to start, the technology partner, and it's part technology and also kind of part consulting services, we're getting absolutely best in class service in terms of the technology and consulting that we're getting from a scheduling standpoint. Now, it's not the scheduling company's job to tell us how to design our schedule. They ask us for the inputs. It's our job at the SEC to develop the inputs that can be married up with the technology platform to deliver the schedule that we feel like is fair for all 16 programs and ultimately is going to generate excitement among our fans. So we handle the inputs. Fast Break AI handles the technology platform, the computing resources, and so forth. But we don't stop there. We've developed some confidential methods to try to essentially create our own predictive analytics, as you referenced, Max, in terms of how we build the schedule. Again, I don't want to provide too many details there because I think it does provide our conference with a competitive advantage, but coaches are involved in that process. And more importantly, we're very transparent with them in terms of how we create that methodology. And then also what I would tell you, Max, is we're constantly looking for how to find our next competitive advantage. And so what my time at the NBA taught me is that you can't separate sports and innovation. You can't separate sports and technology. You have to lean into it. You have to adapt or die. This is an incredibly competitive industry. And so I'm personally experimenting with all the leading AI models, ChatGPT, and not just kind of the garden variety, the free version. I'm up at the highest version you could possibly pay for. And I'm using that in every aspect of my job. And we're going to continue to look for opportunities to embrace innovation because this is a competitive ecosystem that we operate in. And the second that I stop looking for a competitive advantage through technology or any other form of innovation is the second that we fall behind. And I'm not going to let that happen. So we are constantly looking for whatever the next frontier is and the next competitive advantage.
ChatGPT, the music to Max Barr's ears, because we have an exciting off-season series for SEC basketball that does revolve around ChatGPT. We're going to have some fun with it, but we'll reveal that at a later date. But Garth, on the way out here, is there anything else maybe that we've not gotten into that you want fans to know? And keep in mind, guys, if you're watching this on our live stream, remember this is a recorded interview. You probably have lots of questions, comments, or whatever. Remember, as Max said earlier, you can reach out to Garth on X at Garth Glissman. Like, he does a great job, as you said, sort of interacting with all you guys and very visible when it comes to promoting SEC basketball. So any additional questions, comments you have, reach out there. But Garth, anything else that we haven't gotten into that you want to kind of stress to fans here now that the schedule has been released?
Well, one general point, and then I want to preview a couple of big games I think that'll have fans interested. And so it's a point that both of you have made around transparency. And during my time at the NBA, society changed in many ways. And social media was certainly popular at the time that I arrived at the NBA. But, from 2016 to 2023, you really saw social media become more pervasive. It essentially became a defining feature in life, and particularly in sports. But at the same time, as the media landscape has evolved, our country also, sadly, the trust that we have in institutions in our country is at an all-time low. And the SEC, I'm proud to be a part of the SEC. The SEC is an institution. And so whether it's the NBA or the NFL or the SEC, these big institutions in the sports world that fans care about, people sometimes lump the SEC into these other large institutions for which there's been a gradual erosion of trust in American society. And so I think it's important for people in positions like mine to be transparent in the way that we operate, to answer questions from fans, to understand that there's no hidden agenda. I grew up on a small farm outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, so I didn't have any particular connections to the sports industry, nor did I have any particular allegiances to a specific SEC school. I'm just someone who loves sports. In one way or another, I've been connected to sports my entire life. And there's no agenda here except trying to create a level playing field for all 16 SEC programs so the cream can rise to the top. But I understand, in light of everything that's happening around us in society, that we have to work harder than before to communicate and educate fans to the extent that, if concerns do arise or conspiracy theories arise, you have to meet them head on. And so there's a reason why I think it's so important to operate with transparency and to be out there, as you said, and to meet people where they are. So I just wanted to make that point. And I do enjoy the interaction with SEC fans because that's what makes the SEC special. That's where the "it just means more" motto comes from. It all starts with our fans. So I wanted to make that point. Secondly, I just hope that our fans will take some time to study the schedule today and look at it from the perspective of your favorite school, of course, because I'm confident that all 16 schools are going to have some features in there that they like. And then also look at it from the perspective of the SEC as a whole and understand that every week we're trying to deliver marquee matchups for our fans, not only to generate interest within the SEC, but ultimately we feel that each week of the 10-week SEC season, we have 2 or 3 games that have a chance to be the best game and the most watched game in all of college basketball that week. And so a couple games I think that are worthy of mention that always generate conversation. Not often in SEC play that we get to have a Final Four rematch within conference play. So we're going to have a Final Four rematch on Saturday, January 24th, Auburn at Florida. So circle your calendars, Saturday, January 24th, Final Four rematch. The next Saturday, and that's a important weekend in the sports calendar because it's the weekend between the NFC and AFC championship game and the Super Bowl. So you got the NFC and AFC championship games, bye week, then Super Bowl. So Saturday, January 31st, that's an NFL bye week leading up to the Super Bowl. We've got an absolute set of bangers that day.
Max, calm down over there. Like, Max, just calm down. I know you've seen it.
Texas at Oklahoma, Alabama at Florida. Let me just repeat. Auburn at Tennessee, Texas at Oklahoma, Alabama at Florida, all on the same day. And I didn't even mention the one that I think is going to capture the attention of the entire sports world, and that's Kentucky at Arkansas. Obviously, given Coach Calipari's connection to Kentucky, everyone can understand the importance of that game. So Saturday, January 31st, when for the first time in many, many weeks, there's no NFL action, we want to make sure that SEC basketball is positioned to be the talk of the sports world. And given Coach Calipari's history with Kentucky, we think that Kentucky and Arkansas game has the opportunity to be the most talked about sporting event that entire weekend, not just the most talked about college sports or college basketball game, but most talked about sporting event of any kind. And then we talked about rivalry Saturday, Florida at Kentucky, Alabama at Auburn. You've got Oklahoma at Texas, Arkansas at Missouri, Texas A&M at LSU. I mean, the list goes on. We've got the two Tennessee schools playing together, Vanderbilt at Tennessee. That's a new concept this year that we're calling Rivalry Saturday. The goal there is to just create maximum excitement around SEC basketball leading into the SEC tournament and then ultimately March Madness. So a lot of exciting games to plan for, but just know that literally every week you're going to be able to look at the calendar and say, wow, that's going to be the best game in the country in that particular week. And so we're really intentional about that. We don't want to just win within the SEC footprint. We want to serve our fans within the footprint, but we want to win nationally. And we think we have a chance every week to do that with the schedule that we built.
Well, Garth, I told you before we hopped on here, I said I think that it shows the strength of the league when there are some game slates you look at on the schedule and you're like, that may be the third or fourth best game on the SEC slate, but it may be the best game. It could rival any other conference's top game, and I think you've got that so many times throughout the schedule when you look at it. But we appreciate you doing this. I know this was kind of fun for us just to certainly, just start diving into this thing, see some of these big dates, as you mentioned, and all these big games that are on the schedule. And so we appreciate you taking the time to do this. We always appreciate your support of what we do. And, as you know, we're ready. It's August, but we're ready. Let's just get this thing going. So,
well, Blake, what I would say is, remember that when we talk about big games, at this point, it's just projections.
Right.
And so if you're a fan base and you feel like, well, he didn't spend as much time talking about my team, or, he talked about my team within the context of a particular day, and I feel like our game's going to be, that's why we play the games. You get a chance to go out and prove it on the court. That's why we play the game. So we've built a schedule that we think on paper on August 6th gives us a chance to continue our dominance in men's basketball. But ultimately, all 16 men's basketball programs going to go out and compete and write their own story this year. Last year, for example, the February 15th game, Alabama versus Auburn, that was the most watched SEC regular season game since 2019. And why did that happen? Because it was the first 1 versus 2 matchup nationally in SEC history. So the point is, if you win games, everything else takes care of itself.
Yep, absolutely. Garth, thanks as always. I'm sure we'll talk to you again here soon. And, we're ready to tip it off.
Blake, Max, thanks for all you do to promote interest in SEC men's basketball. Very appreciative of both of you.
We're back. There you go, our interview with Garth Glissman, the SEC Associate Commissioner for men's basketball. Tremendous stuff. By the way, I know the audio cut out for about a minute or so there. It wouldn't be a Southeastern 16 stream without a little bit of a technical issue, but here's what we'll do. If you're subscribed to the podcast feed, we will release the interview. Or again, you're only missing like a minute of that. It wasn't a lot, but you can listen to the whole interview on the podcast feed. We're also going to release the interview portion with Garth as a separate video on the channel, so you guys can go watch it in its entirety in a separate video too, because I know sometimes people don't watch our hour-plus long live streams, Max. Can you believe that? But
What?
we'll release the interview with Garth as a separate video. That'll be coming up here on the channel. So, thoughts, you guys. You guys were, again, sharing your thoughts on kind of the different things that came out with what Garth had to say, and we mentioned some of them earlier about just the some of the changes they were making to the schedule, fan feedback from elsewhere, and yeah, lots of great matchups, as he mentioned.
This is like, it almost feels like Selection Sunday. It's like a mini Selection Sunday for me, because now I'm seeing all my friends that, you know, are in SEC that have fans of SEC. They're like, I think I see 14-4. I think I can see 12-6. What's my ceiling and floor? I think our floor is a 10-8. So at least we'll have this seed. Now you can really start digging in and seeing, oh, we got a bye week before we have to go on the road to play this big game. I'm glad we got the bye week there. Maybe I feel a little bit better about playing this team now. You can really start digging in. It's great. We haven't had time to dig into all 16, but you best believe we will get there. But I want to know from you guys, if you have kind of looked through your favorite team's schedule so far, what are you predicting? You got a little 12-6, maybe a 14-4, Blake, coming up to the top of the league. What do we got?
Speaking of predictions, you guys know I always mention every year our guy Sam Snelling over at ROKFORM Nation does a pick'em where he sends us a sheet and we pick every single SEC conference game before the season starts. And so, I mean, it's something where we will have we'll share what numbers we have when we do that. But Max and I will have a fun exercise now that the schedule is out. I'm sure Sam will be emailing us at some point soon to give us that, and we will see what we come up with in terms of our pick'em. Going to be tremendous. So that's that. So, all right, what else you got?
I think the highlight, what's coming up in my head right now, what just keeps coming since we did the interview, what keeps popping up is that pocket bit of right between that NFL conference championship and Super Bowl. Like, to think ahead, and I know you're big on this. You like looking at the other sports schedules to see how does the TV schedule line up? Who's going to, where the eyeballs where the sport fan eyeballs going to be to line up some of the massive games that are lined up on that day. It's like, oh my gosh, I can feel us that week getting excited. This is the week we've been talking about. No NFL, it's basketball time. Right when we finished that interview, guys, we hit end stream. I go, Garth, you need to find me a brick wall to run through right now. You need to find me a brick wall. I'm fired up.
Fired up. Brian, don't worry. Max is he's at the old place. So yeah, the paneling is not down, but different location.
The paneling is Wilmington, and then this is Charlotte. Can't hold me down. Hopping all over.
Holly says, a gut bracket time? Should we just go through right now and pick a winner of every single game? I mean, should we? Would we do that? We would, but we won't. We'll hold off on that. I told you guys in the chat, if you saw it, it's a new month. Why don't we hand out some memberships here at Southeastern 16? New members coming here. And by the way, keep Kaylin in Tuscaloosa, I think, has a great idea. Use the wheel to determine the watch-alongs. Maybe we use the wheel for a lot of stuff this year. There is an idea I have for our show next Tuesday. Max doesn't even know about that I think you guys are going to enjoy. So our main theme for our show next Tuesday could be a lot of fun. But let's hand out some memberships to you guys. And let's see who is going to get one of our lucky memberships. We're going to hand out 5 here. You ready, Max?
Let's go.
Should we spin the wheel just for fun? Remember, these are not determined by us. YouTube randomly determines who's going to get a membership. Here we go. Memberships being sent out. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's going to be Eddie getting a membership. William getting a membership. Wildcat Rewind membership. Michael, a new member. And Sven is back.
Hey.
Sven back as a member. That's all I needed to know. So 5 new memberships gifted out here at Southeastern 16. It just means more to you guys, more bonus content coming up here as we get into the seasons and all that. So, yeah, we appreciate you guys and your support of the channel.
Williams got Mizzou going 12-6. Mizzou fans, how'd you like that from Garth? A little buzz around the league. Maybe the Tigers being underestimated. Some of the coaches may think otherwise. Maybe it's time we got to start steaming up Mizzou, Blake.
Well, you don't have to tell me twice. Are you kidding me? You kidding me? You telling me to give some more hype to Missouri? Are you kidding me right now? I could do that all day. So, my guy, Dennis Gates. All right. We're out of here. We appreciate you guys jumping on the second straight day as we jumped into it. Sorry, Big Baller Brett. No non-conference preview on this episode. This was a schedule-only preview. And, again, we kind of had a feeling this was coming, and so we wanted to get this out for you guys. And like I said, I know if you're watching this on replay, I know there's a couple audio dropped a little bit there. We'll put this out as a separate video with the audio clear, and we'll put this on our podcast feed as well. Again, it's only like a minute or so, but obviously we want to make sure you get the entire thing with the context and all of that. So, all right. We appreciate you guys. Remember, support our friends over at FanDuel. They are our new title sponsor here at Southeastern 16. Check out all the odds. If these schedules got you just saying, you know what, I want to go bet on these teams right now. I've seen the SEC schedule. I see all I need to see when it comes to picking a national champion. Then go take a look at those odds over at FanDuel. As we said, lots of SEC teams up there in terms of the futures for the national championship winner in 2026. So check that out with our friends at FanDuel. All the player props, team props, futures, same game parlays. They got it all. Let's get into it. So FanDuel, check it out. We appreciate you guys. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. More SEC basketball and football stuff on the way here at the channel. We appreciate you watching as always. We'll talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.